Hi everyone, it's Kelsey. Thanks for stopping by Essentially Book today. Today I'm going to be talking about all things food, food memoirs, foodie books I'm looking forward to reading, and my favorite cookbooks. So if you've been around for a while and followed me on Instagram, you know that I love me a good foodie memoir. And I love food writing, anything food adjacent. Those are typically some of my favorite books that I read each year. And I haven't really talked about that on my booktube as much as I thought I would based on my reading, but I've also been reading not as much foodie content as I like. So first, I am a partner with Abram's Books and I do their cookbook influencing program. That was new this year. It's been really fun. I am only going to feature one from that partnership. They send each season's books in exchange for reviews, and I've done more on my Instagram for that, but I have gotten one cookbook from that I've really loved. You will see that later on in this video, but first I'm going to start with my favorite food memoir, food writing, nonfiction, and then I'm going to go into some books I'm excited for, and then I will finish with cookbook recommendations. So let's get started. Okay, so my memories with food, like my grandma was always really into baking, and so that was something I always really looked forward to. And I think there's just so many positive memories with cooking in my life that it makes sense that I'm naturally drawn to books that have good food writing. I also was in a culinary arts class in high school where we had a restaurant, and the teacher always would watch Julia Child. And so she's kind of the OG cooking inspiration for a lot of people here in the United States, and she brought French cooking into America. But the first book I'm going to recommend is My Life in France by Julia Child. I'm obsessed with Julia Child, and so I've read tons of adjacent books about her, like Julie and Julia, which is not good. The movie I love, but not the book. And this is obviously the movie adaptation, so whatever, but it is a really great nonfiction pick just about her story and food and lessons learned in food. So that would be the first one I'd recommend. And then I have a couple memoirs that I adore for different reasons. So the very first one is A Homemade Life by Molly Weisenberg. And this is a series of essays, stories, and recipes from my kitchen table. And it's really about her grieving the loss of her dad, but also just kind of talking about life. And there's so many good little recipes throughout here that are just really, really fun. This one is not faith adjacent. So if you just are wanting a nice, cozy food memoir, I would actually recommend this. If you are religious, I would recommend Bread and Wine by Shauna Niequist. This is a book I read all the time. It's just comforting to me, but she looks at how food really has helped her through rough times in her life. And the recipes in here, the best. Any book by Shauna Niequist has great recipes, but I think this one is definitely my favorite. There is a goat cheese scrambled egg in here that I really like. And then she has, there's another book I have by her called Savor, which is a devotional book. And she has this blueberry cobbler that's really good. But anyways, Bread and Wine is my other recommendation if your faith is Christian or just faith adjacent, whatever. If you don't mind it, it's not super overpowering, and I really like her brand of Christianity. Finally, most people have probably heard of this by now because there's a Netflix adaptation, but From Scratch by Tembi Locke is so good, and you will not have a dry eye after you finish it, but it is truly one of the best food memoirs I've ever read. She falls in love with an Italian man through college, and he ends up passing away from cancer. So half of the book is going through that journey and their love story, and then the other half is what happened next. And so it's so beautifully done. The recipes in here and how she used food to heal and grieve, it's so good. I am actually due for a reread on this one because it is such a lovely book. Okay, and then another beloved food writer of many people is Ruth Reichl, and she has quite an extensive backlist. So I've read Save Me the Plums, and then I've also read Garlic and Sapphire. So she was a New York Times reviewer for food writing, and she was one of the leading food critics, but she was best known for dressing in disguise so that restaurants wouldn't pander to her. And so that's what Garlic and Sapphires is about, and it is so funny, so good. I keep wanting to call it Comfort Me with Apples, but Save Me the Plums is about her time at Gourmet and being a food editor in that magazine, and then it closed. So that book was written about that experience and is a memoir. She wrote this, which is My Kitchen Year, after Gourmet shut down, And this is like, it's broken up seasonally. There's 136 recipes that saved her life is the tagline. It's so pretty. Like, I don't know how to be a good bookstagrammer, but so it's a memoir, but there's recipes throughout, and it is such a beautiful book. I read it sometimes just for comfort, like if I'm having a rough day. This is a book that I will open up and just read for funsies. But she is a wonderful writer. She has a couple others I haven't read that I'm trying to work through or like want to read soon. So she has one called Delicious, Comfort Me with Apples, which is why I kept saying that. But she's a go-to if you're looking to just really get into great food writing, Ruth Reichel. Then I have some honorable mentions. These ones are just fun, different ones. They're not my favorite, but I kept them on my shelves because they were really enjoyable experiences. So the first is a graphic novel called Relish by Lucy Knisley. And this is her life in the kitchen, and it's just a really fun graphic novel about food and cooking. And I really like her as a graphic artist. Is just her writing's really fun. She has a book in Paris that I really like. There's one about motherhood I need to read. It's just super fun. Like, I don't know, makes me feel good. And then Mastering the Art of French Eating by Anne Ma. She is an author I would love to read more of, but her husband was given a diplomatic assignment in Paris. And so they moved to Paris, and this is her exploring different regions of France and different cuisine, learning how to make it, interacting with the culture. I read this for the Modern Mrs. Darcy book club. I know she has a book about wine, and then she just came out with one about, I think, Jacqueline Kennedy in Paris. That's historical fiction, but this is her nonfiction, I think, debut, and then her other books are historical fiction. So I would like to read more of her backlist too, but I haven't. I just really enjoyed this one. It was fun, and it also is about French eating. So a little play on the Mastering the Art of French Cooking, Mastering the Art of French Eating, Julia Child tie-in. Like, of course I'm gonna read it. So that is my stack of books that I love and recommend to people that are food adjacent. I will be linking all of these down below too. Okay, and then now for some that I'm anticipating to read this year or will read sometime but want to read that is actually on my physically owned shelves. So first is For Better or Worse by Erin LaRosa. This is an ARC I got that published back in 2022, and I started it and then got distracted by other things and never finished it. It is kind of based in a competitive reality food cooking show, so a little bit of a play on Great British Baking, but I would say this would be more like Chopped in that environment. But it's about two TV co-hosts that are enemies to lovers, so food adjacent, but it sounded fun. Finding Freedom, A Cook's Life, Remaking a Life from Scratch by Erin French, who is the founder of The Lost Kitchen in Maine. And this is just her memoir. I've heard really, really good things about it, but I don't know much about it. So I'm gonna leave it at that. And then The 10th Muse, My Life in Food by Judith Jones. She is kind of a staple in American food writing as it became what it was. She is known for her relationship with Julia Child, which is also why I wanted to read this. She's actually the publisher of Mastering the Art of French Cooking. So there's just a Julia Child adjacent aspect to this, but this is also a well-known food memoir. And then one that I grabbed because I really like chefs' stories is Our Lady of Perpetual Hunger, a memoir by Lisa Donovan. And this won the James Beard Award. So James Beard is a famous chef, and they give a bunch of like cookbooks and memoir, like food book awards. So this is one that won that. I think it's mainly about a woman in the kitchen and how she kind of took charge against like sexism and stuff and just her experience. So another memoir. And then because I'm obsessed with all things Paris, Lunch in Paris, A Love Story with Recipes. This is about a girl who I believe falls in love with a Frenchman. She falls in love with a Frenchman, learns how to cook like the French way while living there. I think that author has multiple books set in Paris, so we'll see. And then finally, this is fiction. I got it from Fabled as a recommended read when I did their subscription. It's Love and Saffron, a novel of friendship, food, and love. And I have heard nothing but fantastic things about this. Like, it's short, it's sweet, and people have just raved about it. So that's my stack of anticipated reads that I would like to get to. So now I'm going to talk about my favorite cookbooks. And I have like quite a bit of cookbooks. So I really wanted to make sure I was featuring books that are accessible, have ingredients people can find, and are ones that I truly cook from all the time. I have a ton of specialty cookbooks that are like special occasions or when I'm wanting to cook like a certain thing. Like I have Korean American. Those are more fun for me, and they're not ones that I find myself cooking from all the time. This stack right here are ones I use every week and cook from all the time. So the very first one is The Comfortable Kitchen or the Defined Dish Cookbook by Alex Snodgrass. She's a Texas-based cook. She got her roots in like Whole30, but this is not Whole30. It's very like all-encompassing. I love her food styling too, but these are like everything from salads to fancy things to date nights to things kids will eat. There's even a drink section to this because her husband has a really good margarita recipe. So on this one, there is a chicken tuppa zascana that I probably just butchered. It's so good, but anything by her, I love it. This one I would say is more like for date nights or like fancier night cooking, but it is such a good cookbook. And then you can never go wrong with Half Baked Harvest. She has 3 cookbooks. I have all of them. This is her newest. It's Half Baked Harvest Every Day. This one is meant to be like an easy weekday type cooking. I will say her other book, she has her main one and then she has her super simple. She is more ingredient intensive than a lot of people are used to. So I would say she's more, her recipes are very accessible, but there's just a lot of steps to them and it's a lot more labor intensive, but her recipes have never failed me. They're always good. I really like her for like seasonal cooking because I can always find a recipe for like when my zucchini's overflowing or when I have a ton of tomatoes. Like she's just kind of one of my go-tos when I'm trying to use up recipes. So that's anything Half Baked Harvest. And then I'm a huge bread baker and I do sourdough, which I have specialty cookbooks for that. But the book that I like recommend to so many people who want to get started with baking bread is Bread Baking for Beginners. And this is off Amazon. It's self-published. It's not like a big name, but I make the focaccia bread. You guys have probably seen me do it on Instagram all the time. And she has just basic recipes that are fun. There's some to play with, like just to do a simple bowl or look like sourdough loaf, how to make cinnamon rolls. This is just a really inclusive welcome to bread baking cookbook. So if you want to get into bread baking, this is the one I recommend. This is the one that I got through my partnership with Abram's books. It's What's Gaby Cooking. This is Take It Easy. And I got this through my partnership with Abram's books. And so I did get this to partner with them, but I've actually found myself cooking from it all the time. Some of our favorite recipes, there's a really good banana bread, this leek omelet. These chicken parm meatballs are so good. And then she has a focaccia recipe I really love. Let's see what else I have. I've had multiple things in here. Oh, and this barbecue inspired meatloaf is really good. But she also in this one has like themed meals. So there's like a Cinco de Mayo meal. There's a summer Italian party. There's just all sorts of like fun, fresh foods. Desserts. There's this s'mores pizookie, which is like a s'more cookie. Looks so good. So I love What's Gaby Cooking. But this one's really fun and very easy. Like this one is meant for weeknight cooking. So I've loved it. And then another one, if you're wanting to eat a little more on the healthy side, anything from Skinny Taste. I personally like Skinny Taste One and Done because it is all like one pot things for your Instant Pot, slow cooker, air fryer, sheet pan, skillet, Dutch oven, grill. This one is one I cook from all the time. I have a few, like when I don't have any ingredients on hand, there's a meatloaf in here that I do like probably once a week. The air fryer stuff is super fun. It's just, this is a really good one for families in general, but even if this just has broad ranges of food, a ton of different palettes. It's all pretty easy and affordable. Really love Skinny Taste. And then one of my most anticipated cookbook releases of last year was by Jen Hatmaker, and I just love her to pieces, but this one is called Feed These People by Jen Hatmaker, and this is a cookbook that I read front to back because she's so funny and she's such a good writer. It's broken up into sections. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, so here's the sections. Food for breakfast, food for noshing, food for spoons, food that goes in carbs, food for your picky spouse or spawn, food for when you have no more dams to give, food that goes next to your food, food for hippies, food for when you want to seem fancy, and food that comes after your food. She's just funny. She has so many like hilarious little side blurbs, and just she describes each recipe in her typical voice. But I would say this has everything. Like there's some smash burgers that would be like perfect hangover food that I think look really good in here. I've made her pulled pork. Right now I'm doing low carb, so I haven't been able to cook through this as much as I want, but it is so beautiful. There's like coconut shrimp, soups, just everything. And she's just everything is meant to like be able to have for like if you have picky eaters or whatever. And there's a Texas flair, so lots of spicy food. It's beautifully done. I'm super excited to cook through this summer. And then the last two recommendations are a little more specialized. So if you have kids, I recommend baby-led feeding. So we did baby-led weaning with my son, but this book has really fun recipes after you're at the point where your kid can eat more, but they're like recipes that like we eat as adults. I've done some really fun, there's like mini muffin bites, there's some veggie bread, there's some waffles that are really fun in different smoothies, but there's these trout cakes, but it's also with a focus on nutrition for kids. So if you are just looking for something like to get more veggies or stuff into your kids, baby-led feeding is one of my favorites. I love this book. And then finally, the classic Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. It is a cookbook, but it is also like the science of cooking and how to cook. So it is very much beautiful, but like the first half of the book is just the science of cooking and different like pHs. So it's salt, fat, acid, heat. There's a Netflix show that goes with this that's really fun. It's just beautiful to watch. And then in the back, she has like some of her favorite recipes, and then she gives variations. So it's meant to teach you like the fundamentals of cooking, but then go and play with her recipes, play with different flavor profiles. It's just fun. Sometimes I'll just cook through it for fun. Like it's not even, there's tons of like sauces and stuff, and I do a CSA, and so I'm always looking for ways to use up different greens that I'm not familiar with or whatever. And I usually will come to this because it tells you how to like do flavor profiles. So that's kind of my stack of all things foodie books. And I obviously love them. I can't not buy cookbooks if it's somebody that I adore. So if there's a cookbook you love, I would love for you to share that in the comments, because I am always looking to check out new books from the library that are cookbooks and maybe add to my permanent collection. I will be getting my spring shipment from Abram's Books here soon, so I'm really excited to see what they come up with. But thank you so much for sitting through this chatty video. I love, love, love all of you, and I'm so glad you're here. So thank you. Bye, everybody.